ladies and gentlemen, I have the absolute delight of welcoming on stage Shonan Purie Trehan from Language.Architecture.Body, which is Lab. So ladies and gentlemen, let's have a huge round of cheer. Please help me welcome Shonan Purie Trehan.
The birth of a project usually starts with the recognition of a human need and the place that this story will unfold. But as architects, we're used to getting project briefs. But there's a critical difference between fulfilling a brief and crafting a meaningful narrative. By some cosmic luck, we named our practice Language.Architecture.Body, which reflects our current thinking of working between narrative, design, and habitation. We delve deeply into the essence of a project, weaving together people and place. The evidence of this is the emergence of a project identity, a unique identity that is the conversation that has been crafted between the people and the place. This identity doesn't belong to the architect, it belongs to the project. And today we'll explore 4 stories, 4 projects that will examine this. A Wish in a Well finds its bearings in a local history. It's not a monumental history, but a subtle heritage that is found on the land, remnants of lives lived there before. Manoj and Kavita invited us to walk their land, promised land, and go out with them. We expected a 2-acre plot open to the rice fields. While we did indeed find beautiful rice fields, the more compelling feature was an old well nestled amongst the coconut grove. And this well told us of a time before we have walked the land, before Manoj and Kavita. The well then became a focal point for planning the project. As soon as you enter the house, you immediately are on axis with the well, forging an immediate relationship with this vessel of the land. The well stood witness while we crafted a new life around it. And it finds its place in the corner of the 3-sided courtyard. It was honored and restored. The roofs of this project are designed to return the rainwater to the well, creating a regenerative relationship between the old and the new. This seasonal exchange is a deep and meaningful bond between something that stood on the land before we arrived and the new life that we crafted. Building this house was a transformation for this family. They were at the peak of their careers and were shedding a life of an uber, hyper, urban life to redefine that life by the making of this home. This home became the blueprint of that change. Some of the subtext of their future life was in the planning of the home. The sheer generosity of the dining and kitchen was a cue that they would become Goa's most appreciated guest house. We planned for a cottage for 2, thinking of some sort of guests, not really knowing that they would become Goa's most known hosts for this way of life. The Nair family were originally from Kerala, so we wanted a whisper of this in this new coastal tropical home. So on an overcast day, Kavita and I went to Kochi to recover cast-away windows and doors. We chose pieces that had a story of their own origin, a belonging that had been dismantled. And we collaged them together, stitching together an envelope for this guest house. Now, although these windows don't belong together, they have a new reclaimed existence in this juxtaposition. This assembly brings together woods from different forests, glass from coming over the seas, and locks by different forgers. The walls of the house were built around these found pieces. The roofs and verandas are held up by these antique columns. And there is space in this home for both the individual and for the gatherings that it has welcomed in. The house is deeply steeped in the sensitivity to the past, but it is built for a life to come. So in this sense, it's quite futuristic. The house is detailed with bespoke handmade elements that tell the details of their story. In our early conversations with Shalini and Anand, the term luxurious ashram emerged. And we started to delve deeper into what luxury could mean and what an ashram would mean in this project. And could this term be the actual design strategy for the project? We knew when we looked at the idea of luxury, it meant that it should have authentic materials that are finely crafted. Access to green spaces is a luxury. And that the ashram would be the reductive simplicity of it. We knew that the house should stay grounded, but then we literally thought of could the house really emerge from the ground? The rammed earth artisans of Hunarshala collected soil from their journey from Bhuj to Baroda and then tested the soil for strength and stability, designing a soil mix for this house. The soils that were collected were literally rammed by hand into the formwork, creating almost a library of the soils of the journey from Bhuj to Baroda. And in these massive walls, we also have nuanced spherical impressions which make way for a daily ritual. This house is an everyday house for 2, but an occasional house for 6. Anand and his mother Prema would live here year-round, but his wife and children would visit occasionally. So the challenge was how to make an intimate house for 2, but something that is ample for 6. We thought of challenging the sort of typical social spaces. We usually get a brief that says living room, dining room, study, den, these are the things we need. But we decided to trade in the idea of a traditional living room for a series of smaller recreational spaces. In the center of the house is Anand's vaulted great room, which has an intimate lounge for a conversation with a friend, a writer's desk, a library, and it is flanked by 2 courtyards on either side, on the north and the south. This house is a series of spaces that is strung together by 7 courtyards. For every enclosed space, there is an open one. You can hear one of the courtyards come alive with Dhruva playing the trumpet while Prema walks her path of 8. One of the luxuries that we lose as we grow up is the freedom to play. The idea of being able to run outside and play. So one of the thoughts was, and this would be a good brief for a project, can a home bring back the feeling of going to run out to play? Can actually a design of a home bring back that feeling back to you? From Prema's bedroom, one walks across her courtyard to Prema's lounge, where she lives out the activities of her day, yoga, singing, sitar playing, writing, and her lounge is also open to the community for therapy and counseling. The replacement of the main living room is an open vaulted veranda in a garden. The swing and seats welcome friends, and they're immediately surrounded by nature and by the north garden. Each of the private bedrooms has its own courtyard, providing a personal outdoor space for the 3 generations of the home. Over the course of the day, these courtyards come alive with the rituals and moments of their day, bringing meaning and connection to living in this home. About 10 years ago, we were naive and chose to build a house in this remote hill. We knew that the house should be alive, a catalyst in the ecology. And from the trigger from building this home was the regeneration of the land around with 2,000 trees, microbial soil, and bees. The first most critical thing we learned that we did was something we did not do. We did not build a boundary wall, leaving the edges porous. And in doing this, we saw the benefits when creatures take refuge during a wildfire or a passerby asks for water. The house is perched on the 75-meter elevation of the slope of the plot, and the first gesture on the land was an internal 500-meter road. We stretched a geocell mesh and filled it with gravel, and recycled tires retained the earth. The gravel and the tires catch rain and seeds, bursting to life, transforming what would have been a concrete road and a concrete wall. On one of our walks, we came across how the wind had pushed the dried grass, and this was our first cue that our building too would literally need to stretch and pull in response to the natural conditions, to rain, sun, and wind. Imagining shelter over this land, we imagined 3 floating roofs, supported by strategic points with concrete columns. And this gave us freedom in creating enclosures below it and defining the spaces. The 3 distinct pavilions straddle the slope of the earth. The middle one is the main social space, and in the east we have the bedrooms. On the other side is the dining with a bedroom below, and a deck connects all of the pavilions together, allowing seamless flow through the house. The central pavilion is the main social pavilion of the space. The exposed metal diagrid ceiling and the exposed concrete columns are part of the integral expression of the house. In that sense, the house is fairly naked. The structural design is the interior expression. There's no better way than to bring a sense of playfulness in people than a giant timber slide. There isn't an age or a size that hasn't been tickled into the thrill of going down this slide. This immediately sets the tone of wit and whimsy in the house. Days at the farm are spent harvesting, cooking, and sharing. The kitchen and dining room reflect this. The indoor protected dining room opens up completely to the outdoor deck, where one can eat under the stars and also on the windy deck in the summertime, which no one believes is actually windy by design. The social kitchen is the heart of the house. A lot of the magic comes from here. Day and night slip together through conversation. Science experiments, homework, pizza making all happen here. And this is the case that every home should have a creative social space in it. When you're deeply steeped in narrative, sometimes your instinctive detailing is also a continuation of that. The spiraling timber steps cascading around the central structural column is kind of like leaves whirling around a stalk. We are often asked, as most of our plans and our projects are not orthogonal, how we use acute angles. And for us, they're very positive spaces, because these are opportunities to create reading nooks and bed hooks and places to sit. Each of the bedrooms has their own unique view of the ghats, and this island bed is sunbathed by the morning sun. The hand-painted wardrobes are an artistic backdrop, here telling the story of a little boy's dream. The guest rooms are sprinkled with little surprises, like Kerouac's words at the underbelly of the concrete slab. It took 3 fairly smart architects to figure out how to position the letters in the shuttering to get this right. Sometimes challenges force you to invent. And one of our arguments with Hatim Bhai, our contractor, of how much a simple wash basin was costing us, where he said nothing simpler can be built for less, led us to ask, what should a wash basin counter be? And soon enough, Hatim Bhai was sculpting pretty sculptural wash basins. Faced with the challenge of building the 3 diagrid roofs, our consultants brought in a shipbuilding team, coming off the docks just pre-monsoon. They built the 3 roofs in 3 weeks, and each of the roofs is angled to shed water, funnel wind, and shade from the sun. The roof planes drift in the Sahdri Hills, and the house lights up like a lantern at night. In May, the trees are abuzz with fireflies, and you get to know the insects pretty well, especially the ones that only live for a day. To discuss the design of this house, it's a palimpsest of gathered experiences of 7 decades. For a couple that did not want it to be liberated from by any known design genre, except for the only requirement being utter joy, is a pretty good brief to start with. Building in a Delhi house in Delhi in that context, and in a world that is walling up more, we felt the need to connect the house with the road front, And this sundial communicates directly with the passerby, forging that relationship across the boundary wall. Building in Delhi in the 2020s, we felt the need to return in some way. So we returned to brick, handmade brick. And we thought with design technology and the incredible artisanal skill available, we could create something unique. We started with a handmade sculptural model, and then using parametric tools, detailed course by course, every brick course, having to find the position for each brick in space. A small group of masons and a seasoned Swaran Sharma from Dev Sons believed in this challenge. They believed in the craft, and they made this extraordinary effort. Without their expertise, this would not have been possible. With the contractors and masons believing in the beauty of this craft, this brick altered its skin to conceal secrets, water trickling by the entry, little inlaid poetry in the brick, and even a miniature brick sculpture. The interior style of the house is a construct of memories and ideas. There's also a deep reference to cultural motifs. And from the minute you enter the home, humor, joy, and craft take you through and sweep you up. Liberated from any design genre, the atmosphere emerges. It's an unpredictable assembly of ideas. While the house appears whimsical, the craft is very rigorous. Stained glass from CJ from Bombay, hand-poured Atangudi tiles from Bikaner, stone inlay from Hasinuddin and his family from Agra. There's enormous amount of depth in the craft that went to deploying this. The ceilings have cheeky frescoes of things that are familiar and things that are imagined, bringing together worlds that are nostalgic as well as humorous. The dining space is both for a place for 40 and for 4. The puzzle-like dining tables designed by Ayush Kasliwal can reconfigure themselves to be a dynamic dining for an intimate dinner of 6 or for a sit-down of 40. The floors are a field of stories. These bring together two crafts, hand-poured cement tiles and detailed stone inlay, creating each room having its own narrative and unique reference. The rooms are not orthogonal, leading to the curiosity of what space is beyond. And the spaces are connected with passageways and staircases, creating a sense of mystery, like being in a labyrinth. The narrative finds its ways moving between crafts. Bespoke hand-glazed tiles make their way drifting onto the stained glass windows in the same bathroom. And in the writer's room, this is Hasinuddin's favorite floor, the floor also finds its inspiration in the writer from the room. In this way, we approach our projects as storytellers of peace, people, and place. And we believe that, a good brief is something that asks the question of an architect, and therein lies the potential of the architect to play with the gentle art of architecture. Thank you.